May you live long and die from a bullet. A blessing said over newborn children in Albania. Albanians from the north regard death from illness or old age as something shameful. These proud Highlanders spend their lives gathering a capital of honour for a posthumous monument. A man without honour is as good as dead. Paragraph 600. Honour, once lost, cannot be bought, except for blood, or regained except by means of a magnanimous forgiveness arranged by arbiters. Paragraph 598.
The canon is to Albanians more important than even the Bible.
È una scrittura di leggi esaustiva.
The canon is a comprehensive chronicle of laws that governs everything from land cultivation to the honour of women, from managing livestock to how men should dress, always armed with a gun.
E infine tocca anche il discorso dell'onore della donna.
Called Leke Dugadjin's Canon, there is a place not far from here, not far from Ibal, where, so local Albanians claim, Lek Dugadjin wrote the canon. Lek Dugadjin was Skanderberg's secretary, a national hero, who lived and fought the Turks here in Albania around about 500 years ago. The canon was born in the times of wars and Turkish persecution. Christians did not have a court, a government, or a state which could pronounce sentences for them. In fact, the canon was a form of resistance against the Turkish invasion and the Ottoman laws. Albanians always relied on their own laws and their own rules. However, when you read the canon, and you see how much of it, perhaps even 30%, comes from the Quran rather than from the Bible, it becomes difficult to argue that an enemy of the Turks or of Islam wrote it.
La cosa più evidente.
The most patent manifestation relates to vendettas, regarded as obligatory.
Qui la vendetta è obbligatoria. Perché?
A vendetta is compulsory here. The repercussion for a family that does not pursue it is a complete loss of the family's dignity and self-respect. Nowhere is there any mention of it being compulsory. But if you do not seek revenge in a set time, your family will lose its honour and all the rights and privileges that it possesses within the clan. Revenge is a moral duty. The killing of a family member, or even offending a family or a guest, can at times be enough and leave no other choice but for those offended to seek the death penalty. Clearly, the application of such a penalty in turn provokes a chain reaction of revenge that can run for a couple or even a dozen or more generations. One can argue that after the regime collapsed, the canon's influence greatly increased, precisely due to blood feuds. When the regime first took over, it banned all activities associated with the canon. That in turn meant that families had an excuse to forget any plans of revenge. However, with the regime's collapse, old animosities once again flared up. With no government or authority able to maintain law and order in these matters, people once again began to seek revenge. The canon is Albania's unwritten law, a traditionalistic law. Albania has its official civil laws, but in practice, few Albanians actually respect them or have any regard for them. In fact, it is not honourable to have anyone stand before a civil court. Why? Because at least, according to Albanians here, inhabitants of Albania's mountainous northern region, this book contains all the laws that they could ever need to resolve all the conflicts and problems that life might throw at them. Access to arms in the Balkans is easy. A man without arms ceases to be a man. Thus, following a slip of the tongue with my neighbour, I pull out my gun. Famously, in 1997, a member of parliament shot a fellow member on the steps of the parliament building. Asked why he had done it, he answered, "He insulted me to a degree where only blood could remove the indignity I suffered. How could I otherwise look my voters in the eye?" Yes, revenge continues to be realised. It is no pleasure, immediately following an incident, to see families invoke the canon. In the name of the canon, you owe me so-and-so. We have to avenge your blood. Thank God, the second member of parliament survived. He forgave his attacker. As soon as there is forgiveness, there is no case to answer. There ceases to be a victim. However, facts are facts, and it becomes a hard nut to crack for the local police and prosecution service to bring criminals to justice. On many occasions, even the most serious offences cease to be crimes, as there is no victim. In many instances, offences are not officially investigated. What we have here is, alas, an instance where laws born of customs intermingle with statutory laws. We must learn to understand the canon. If we do not understand it well, we might think it is dangerous, and we might deform its sense. What is happening today, things such as vendetta, murder, moral decline, and many others, they have nothing to do with the canon, but with trampling on all values and respecting neither the canon nor any other laws. Canon laws were very strict and rigidly applied. Very precise conditions had to be met for a revenge to be sanctioned. It seems that recently, vendettas are being sought in circumstances that do not meet these conditions. When blood is flowing, it is not the reason why someone is killed that is important, rather that a blood insult requires a blood response.
Proprio per questo motivo, allora il canon come legge non può essere più applicato in Albania.
It is exactly for this reason that the laws of the canon can no longer be applied in Albania. The canon's derogatory influence on the life of Albanians comes more from what people imagine it to be than what it actually is. Unfortunately, mentalities are changing for the worse. For example, if someone is looking for revenge, they turn to the canon because it gives them an excuse by which they can also benefit financially. Were the laws of the canon to be applied as they were intended, with a mediator as peacemaker, what happens today would not be possible, and the formulation of solutions would be far easier.
Possono essere più ordinati, non così disordinati.
What might seem contradictory is that the canon was born and is very strong where there is a large Catholic presence. Another contradiction, as I see it, is that a Catholic priest can unite families. Certain initiatives have been introduced that try to integrate elements of the canon. That is, those elements that deal with uniting families. The Archbishop of Shkodër, His Excellency Angelo Massafra, sent us a letter in which he even included instructions on how, if not to eliminate the vendetta law, to at least look for means of solving the disputes that arise between families through reconciliation. In the 90s, I met in Albania many bishops who devoted some of their time to visit families, to talk with them, trying to bring back harmony among them. It used to be a custom to paint a big cross on the house doors of the reconciled family, to show all and sundry that the reconciliation had taken place. This work of the bishops is very important, and even though the number of the families who are burdened with a vendetta is growing, perhaps even faster than the number of the reconciled families, but leaving that aside, there is the educational, teaching aspect of such actions. Nevertheless, this has not yet become the norm. He who seeks unity is not always regarded as being better than others. In some cases, he may be regarded as a coward. It is that aspect of the issue that needs to be worked on. Last year, 2 Albanian deputies came to Paris for a General Assembly of the French Senate. And, generally speaking, they were told exactly the same, either the canon or Europe. But there have been few concrete initiatives to solve other ills that Albania is struggling with. The important thing is what the Church says and what the Pope has told the bishops, that a solution has to come from the Albanians themselves, and that the aspects of honour and of the given word that are in the canon should not be thrown out as a baby with the bathwater, but that Albania should be evangelized anew.
The relationship of the canon to women is also of concern. A woman was killed in a crossfire incident in which rivals were firing at each other after a quarrel. The woman was pregnant. Only after the child was removed from its mother's womb and found to be a boy did the elders gather to rule on who was to blame for the child's death. The canon treats women as an extra feature of the home, paragraph 20.
If a man seeking vengeance murdered a woman instead of a man, he would be disgraced for the rest of his life, because the blood of a woman is worthless. The canon regards a woman as good only for housework, bearing and feeding children, and nothing else. It is the husband's job to tell his wife what to do and to provide for the family, and the wife's job to carry out the man's request. When a woman was married, she would receive 1 bullet that her husband would be allowed to use to kill her if she proved unfaithful. That no longer applies. Nevertheless, in highland communities, isolated from any civilizing influences, the rule is still practiced, albeit in a modified form.
A wife's duties towards her husband. A wife is obliged to 1. Defend her husband's honour. 2. Serve him wholeheartedly. 3. Submit to his authority. 4. Fulfill all her marital obligations by her husband. 5. Bring up the children in accordance with the code. 6. Look after clothing and footwear. And 7. Refrain from interfering in matters relating to the wedding engagement of her sons and daughters. Paragraph 33. A husband's duties towards his wife. A husband is obliged to 1. Provide his wife with clothing, footwear, and whatever else is essential to live. 2. Defend his wife's honour and ensure that she has no need to complain. Paragraph 32.
Però difende l'onore della donna nei confronti delle persone di altra famiglia.
A man protects a woman in as far as other families threaten that honour. For example, a husband may hit his wife if he thinks that she has not done her duty. That is allowed because the husband is the man of the house. The result is that women are subservient to men, and that within the family, men decide their fate. That means that today there are still social customs practiced in the shadow of the canon that are far removed from European norms. Girls here are kept at home, quite simply under lock and key. Perhaps not so in Ebal, as here in Ebal people are just a tiny bit more worldly. But in the country, in isolated villages high up in the mountains without roads, the girls are practically unable to venture outside their home without their fathers. 90% of the Albanian adults who are subject to violence are women. According to the statistics which are conducted in some regions of Albania, between 40 and 80% of Albanian women are beaten by their husbands. Husbands see nothing wrong with beating their wives. When I say you can't beat her, when I tell a husband that he cannot beat his wife, he laughs. How do you mean I can't beat my wife? The men tell me, listen, what sort of man are you if you don't dust down your wife from time to time? The facts are that men beat their wives because the canon allows it. They feel absolved because it is their right.
A woman once pledged cannot leave the man, even if she dislikes him. Paragraph 43.
She is given to her spouse, but not as a result of her own volition. The decision is made by adults. However, there are a growing number of women who are reacting against this state of affairs. If statistics were collected, there would be a lot to think about. We are talking about girls, young women, forced into marriage, who often kill themselves. Those nearest to them ignore it, uninterested in even trying to fathom the reason why. They consider it ill fortune that in a matter of 2 hours, one Sunday, an 18-year-old girl took her own life. She was a catechist involved with many groups. Some who knew her well said that it was to be expected. For others, it was a surprise, a bolt from on high. A chance event? But it is well known that there are many more such events that newspapers do not write about. Events that are often a response to a forced engagement.
My brother has not found himself a wife, for example. He might have liked a girl, but without my mother or father's permission, he would not bring her home. Both families, however, cooperated, including our parents, and so my brothers and sisters were married.
Il nostro arcivescovo di Scutari ha fatto una visita pastorale.
Our Archbishop arrived here on a pastoral visit and continuously repeated, "Daughters, girls, stand up against arranged marriages. Parents, you cannot force your daughters into marriages they do not desire." That is what the Catholic Church can do in this matter.
Credo che sia un tasto che la Chiesa Cattolica può sviluppare, può portare avanti.
A woman has no rights at home or with regard to her children. Paragraph 61.
La famiglia fa fare alla donna incinta.
To establish the child's sex, the family insists that the pregnant woman has an ultrasound examination. If it turns out that she has a boy, then everything is okay. But if it turns out to be a girl, then the fetus should be removed. A child's sex only becomes visible during an ultrasound examination in the 4th or 5th month of the pregnancy. A woman must therefore wait 5 months before she is able to check the child's sex. Abortion is quite simply advertised on television. I've seen advertisements of clinics offering dental services, the possibility to have an X-ray of this or that, and possibly have an abortion. Nobody seems to voice any opposition, or at least not loudly. And so, in their ignorance, people, alas, often follow the voice that flows from radio and television receivers. Some doctors have managed to equip their surgeries with ultrasound equipment, on occasion by stealing them from hospitals. Patients are charged around $80 for an examination. We heard that price mentioned many times while doing our research. $80 for an ultrasound examination, and in the case of a female fetus, the doctor charges $150 for issuing a statement to the effect that the pregnancy presented a threat to the mother's life and that for health reasons an abortion was essential. Nowadays, the state has legalized abortion. In Shkodër, we are very much involved in working, particularly with young couples who plan to start a family. We try to talk about the problems, about abortion and violence in the family, about family planning. When it comes to help, we need it. We do not get enough of it. We need help to publish books, for example on the Billings natural method of family planning. It can help families when we give materials on family planning to them, but not only to families. We also very much want to organize courses, but of course we again need funds, especially if we are to employ professionals to run them. The Church does not only act on behalf of women, but also acts through them, next to them, and with them. The Church has developed a network of catechists. I'm speaking now about a school for women catechists, which I saw during my last visit in Shkodër. It has impressed me immensely that mothers of families, or young women, but rather mainly mothers, in spite of all the difficulties, say with feeding the family in order to survive, those mothers devoted their time to a very serious education, even for some weeks, to go back to their villages and to organize catechesis. And here it must be stressed that very often it is for adult people, because there are 2 generations to be given Christian religious education, also the children. And this is a great example how the Church helps Albanian women to overcome their problems themselves.
The difficulties faced by women through domestic violence, abortion, arranged marriages and exploitation is not without growing international recognition. Most recently, Pope John Paul II addressed Albania's family issues, notably the exploitation of young women. He called on Albanian men and women to work together towards the healing of the family.
John Paul II himself, on the occasion of his last meeting with the Albanian bishops, spoke explicitly about the problems. He asked bishops to provide moral and material support to families in their fight against the exploitation of women and against violence.
The list of family problems does not close with violence. An important issue is also prostitution, which is common among young Albanian women.
Comes to prostitution, it must be said that the numbers are absolutely frightening. In Europe, there are over 30,000 prostitutes from Albania, which makes 10 to 20% of all young Albanian women. They are recruited through advertisements, not only in discos and bars, but sometimes even at schools. They are tempted with an apparently honest employment in Western Europe, for example, a job as a model or a domestic help. Then, and we should remember we are on the threshold of the third millennium, there are enslavement camps still on the Albanian territory. The women are brought there, they are beaten and subjected to gang rapes. When they are completely devastated, they are sent to the grand capitals of Europe. It is supposed that half the prostitutes in Brussels are of Albanian origin. There are regular markets. There is, for example, such a market in Bosnia. It is the notorious Arizona market. Another one is in Milan. It is more discreet, but we are, after all, in Western Europe.
Albania is a country caught between time and cultures, between the canon of yesterday and the expectations of the 21st century, between post-communism and application to the European Union. The Catholic Church is one of the few, if only, structures that works to bridge these two worlds, working to elevate the dignity of the person and the Albanian culture.